should be okay.
I will check.
Says we're live.
Okay. Let's see.
But mine never shows up that we are, and that doesn't give me a number yet. Hopefully we are live. Yeah. I was going to say, the number just popped up for me. So we are live now. Hello, everybody. We have some people here. We're here with Anna Huang, which I am super excited to chat with you. Obviously, everyone knows your books. They are everywhere, and they are amazing. We also have, I'm always the wrong, Michae from Michae joining, who I immediately had to ask if she loves your books. So
thank you, Jess.
You're welcome. To start off, we always chat about our favorite book of the authors. So Michae will go first. What is your favorite book that Anna has written?
Well, that was tricky because I've given the entire Twisted series the same rating, but Twisted Hate is my favorite out of the series. I just feel like Josh and Jules, their dynamic can't be topped. However, Alex is my favorite man, so I had to just give him a special little shout out. So
yes. we love the hot doctors and the slightly psychopathic characters.
Yes. And of course the billionaires, which you have so many of, which are just the best.
If you can't tell, I have a certain weakness for billionaires.
As well as very possessive men, which I appreciate.
So my favorite type.
Yes. Well, because I just read this over the weekend, and like multiple times he's like, that's my woman. That's my fiance. That's my wife. And I'm like, yes, it is. And I love that so much.
I'm so good. Oh my God.
Oh, good. There's someone that is in the middle of King of Wrath right now.
Oh, I hope you're enjoying.
Ooh. Before I forget, so I have this copy, and I'm seeing people with the reflective.
Yeah. So that is the UK version. That's the version that comes from my British publisher. So it's a little bit different. So theirs is foiled.
Yes.
It's like a little smaller, it's foiled, and it's like a little bit glossy. And that's the indie version. That is more like I know.
Did I miss this like super exclusive?
No, I didn't even know. Like there was it literally just showed up in my house like last week, and I opened it and I was like, this looks different. Okay. I didn't even know they were doing it, but I was here for it.
Okay. Yeah. No. Okay, what is your favorite book of yours?
This is a very hard question. And I'm gonna do a little small cop-out in that I love them for different reasons. So the first book will always have a special place in my heart just because it is the book that kicked off this series. For me, the most emotional was Twisted Games that I wrote. And then the most fun was Twisted Hate that I had writing. And then Twisted Lies just brought it all together. So yes, I know I completely copped out of this question, but depending on your definition of favorite, any one of them could fall under that category.
Those are like subcategories.
Weasel my way out of that question.
I love that answer, but like that answer makes sense for everyone. So
it's like different things for different folks.
Yes, we'll take it. We have a lot of love for all of them. Everybody has a different answer.
Yeah, I know. It's very interesting, though, to see kind of what people's favorite books in that series particularly are, because I feel like they generally fall along like different demographics in terms of like what their favorite book is. Like I feel like Twisted Games is a fan favorite among more of like younger, like in general, right? Like more of younger readers, and then Twisted Hate is for people who generally tend to like a little bit of like darker, spicier reads. Twisted Hate tends to be their favorite. And then Twisted Love and Twisted Lies is like a toss-up. Yeah.
Well, Twisted Games is my favorite, but I'm still enjoying. I have just not read Twisted Lies. I just haven't read the last one yet. But Twisted Hate's really good. I really like it. But it is definitely like a little bit on the darker side compared to all the other ones.
Twisted Games is the most it's probably the least dark in that series. It's probably Twisted Games.
But I just like the royal trope. It's so good. And it was so Princess Diaries vibes. So I love that.
I love the Princess Diaries. It was one of my favorite movies if you can't tell. It was one of my favorite movies growing up.
So was that on purpose? Like you took inspiration from, or
it was a little bit of an inspiration, not in the beginning, because when I first wrote about Bridget and Reese, I wasn't thinking about Princess Diaries necessarily. I was just like, oh, Princess Bodyguard, I love a good forbidden romance. And then as I was kind of thinking about their story and their relationship arc, I just so happened to have rewatched all of the Princess Diaries movies like in the midst, and then I was like, I love this dynamic. I'm always like, it's like Spicy Princess Diaries 2 if she had gone with the bodyguard, like the Queen story with the bodyguard instead of, yeah.
Joe and Clarice, but like younger version.
I know. Did you see the Princess Diaries 3?
Yeah.
News?
Yeah.
I don't know the details.
It'd be very exciting.
Me too.
Yeah, because I love those. But I feel like this scene, wasn't there a scene where she was like getting like the like profile of the men she could marry? And I was like, so from the movie.
I love that scene.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
We've already have some question. Okay, so we have a question about King of Wrath.
Okay.
What was your inspiration for Vivian and Dante?
Oh, they kind of just popped up in my head. So funny fact, well, Dante, he first showed up in Twisted Hate, right, which is his first ever, because all of my books are interconnected in the same universe. And for him, he honestly just kind of showed up. I hadn't even been planning to write him in or like make him a main character, but then like he showed up in Twisted Hate, and I was like, I think this sounds like a main character in a new series. And then Vivian, so I kind of wanted to do, like, there's an arranged marriage trope, but I kind of wanted to do a relationship where the power dynamic between them was a little bit more equal, I think, in the sense that she also had like her own money and influence, and she didn't necessarily need his, even though he is like a lot richer than her family. But I would say the closest inspiration for her is, have you ever seen Crazy Rich Asians, the movie? Probably Astrid's character is part of like semi-inspiration for her. A little bit different, but yeah, so I don't know. And then everything else was just, I made it up. Like most of my things. Yeah.
Are there going to be 7 in the series?
Yeah, 7 books. I know it's going to be a long series,
but do you prefer writing series over standalones?
Yeah, I think I've never written well, actually, no, I lied. I wrote a standalone when I was like in high school. Since like unpublished, because let's be honest, my writing when I was 17 was not the best reflection. But yeah, no, I'm a series writer. Even for books, I think that I'm like, oh, this is going to be a standalone. Eventually, I'm like, no, I think I want to write a story for the side character. But I do have in my mind, there are a couple of ideas I have that might be standalones, but in the future, but we'll see.
Cool.
I know.
And you say that now, and it could end up turning into.
I know. I'm like, remember that time when I said it was a standalone? Well, it ended up being like a 5-book series.
I think it's so fun though when you do series, especially when they're interconnected, and then you see the characters making cameos in the other books. Like that was one of the best parts I thought of Twisted Lies, was seeing all the other couples and like the bromance between Josh and Alex coming in and play with all the guys. Like that's just a fun thing that you get that you don't get in standalones.
It's true. And that's the reason why I love interconnected. It's kind of like you get to see the other couples happily ever afters like more, you know what I mean? It's like you see that relationship develop without actually having to give them a whole other book, which can be a lot. Yeah.
Do you have all 7 mapped out, like the couples?
I have the first 4 books up to the 4th book. I have like a pretty good idea of what they'll be about. The last 3 are a little bit more amorphous, and they could definitely change, but I have a pretty set idea of what the next 3 books are going to be about. That being said, I always go into each book and I outline it, right? And I'm like, this is how the story is going to go. And then I write the book, and always I hit like the 50% point, and it just completely goes off script. It happens with every single book. I never fully stick to the outline, but
really,
but in terms of, I can't stick to outline, which drives both me and my editor nuts, but it happens. But yeah, I know who the main characters are going to be. I have a general idea of what their storyline is going to be. So,
okay.
So much.
Have you announced the next couple yet?
Yes, the next couple, King of Pride, comes out next April. It's going to be Kai and Isabella.
Oh, right. I think that was at the end of this, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited for them.
I'm very excited for Kai. I really liked him as a side character in King
Yeah.
of Pride.
Yeah, I'm like, I've got so many. I think people love his glasses. I mean, his British accent's here, but like the amount of people they're like, oh my god, Kai has glasses. I'm like, wow, I did not expect that reception to that particular characteristic of his, but but I'm excited for him. I think he is a little bit different. I mean, there's similarities, but I think he's a little bit different than some of the other men that I've written in the past. A little less like in your face alpha, and a little like more like reserved and like quieter. But I am excited for him. Yeah.
Did you already write the book, or are you in the process of writing it?
No, I wish I was this ahead of my schedule. No, I have not. I'm in the process of writing it.
Okay.
Yeah. One day I will be 4 or 5 months ahead of my publication schedule. One of these days.
That is crazy when authors can do that. So yeah. Do you do simultaneous audio release, or do you do it after?
One day.
Okay. I mean, that takes a lot of planning as well. So
it does. Because it's just with like behind the scenes timing, right? Because it's like you have to look at the narrators, especially if you want like the really like well-known narrators. They book out so far in advance, and then especially because I write pretty long books, so it'll take to produce, which means I have to get the book done earlier. So hopefully next year, I don't think King of Pride I'll be able to get it done with a simultaneous release. King of the third book, fingers crossed. I mean, you probably already know which book it's going to be, but fingers crossed that'll be a simultaneous.
Say it, we don't mind.
Fingers crossed. But King of Wrath audio is in production right now, and I'm really excited because I love the narrators, and I think they're going to do a great job. Yeah.
Can you say who it is, or no? You can't say that yet.
Not yet, but especially the guy is. I mean, they're both well known, but I think the guy is a favorite among the romance community, and that's all.
I'm a huge audiobook listener, so that's very exciting. Someone asked if you'd have mafia. This read so much like a mafia romance, like without the mafia, and I loved it.
I know.
So, would you add any mafia elements to the series?
I don't know. I know I mentioned it a little bit in King of Wrath. Yeah. So I don't necessarily know if there'll be mafia elements in the rest of the series, because it's not necessarily like a dark series. It's actually, I think, a little more mellow than Twisted in terms of its tone. But in the future, maybe I just might write a mafia standalone that turns into a mafia series.
Yeah. I would like that, because that was his brother, right?
Yeah, his brother.
I would love that romance though. Like if that ended up even like being, I was like, oh, wait a second.
It's so funny because after the book came out, people were like laughing. They're like, oh my god, Luca and Maria. They're like, can he just not end up with Leaf? And I'm like, poor Leaf is getting the short end.
It's so intriguing though, the way you like built that up. So
I mean, you never know. There could be a novella. There could be. With that being said, like I said, I haven't mapped out the full series, so I could possibly take this out.
It's all up in the air.
Yeah.
You said so, like the Kai's glasses surprised you, like the reception of that, and then there was some of the things in King of Wrath. Are there other things in your books that have come out that you've been surprised by, like the reader response to?
Yeah, it's always like sort of little. It's never really the scenes that I. It's never like really the quotes. Like there's just little things that people like really latch onto that I thought when I wrote it, I was like, oh, this is cute, but I didn't expect it to be like the whole Christian unicorn thing from Twisted Lies. And I don't want to spoil anything, Jess, if you haven't.
No, you can spoil away. I don't care.
Yeah, there's like this poll that Stella did because she's like an influencer. Where she's like, oh, like who would you rather cuddle with, like Mr. Harper or Mr. Unicorn? And that like really took off. Like the amount of unicorn memes, like the amount of DMs I get of people whenever they see a stuffed unicorn in a store is like a lot. I love them. They're super cute. And then the chess scene also from Twisted Lies between Josh when he gets like jealous that that Alex was playing chess with Christian. That really, I think that was probably one of the most popular scenes from that book, and it wasn't even about Christian and Stella.
Yeah.
And then like cookies. I get a lot of red velvet cookie tags from Twisted Love, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the snacks thing, the ice cream with soy sauce and the Pringles
with pickles.
With pickles. A lot of people tried those combinations. And just to clarify, I have not actually tried them because people are like,
okay.
They're like, they're like, are these your favorite snacks? Like, do you eat these while you're writing? And I'm like, no, I don't. I promise.
I could like think of like the chips in the pudding. I was like, okay, I could see that working. But then as soon as you threw in the pickles, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know.
I love a good pickle. Like I love pickles, but I don't know. Yeah. Combined with pudding. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I've eaten, is it peanut butter pickle sandwiches that people eat? I feel like I've tried that and it wasn't bad, but I think people really like those.
Wait, there are pickle flavored chips. I remember that.
I love pickle chips.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not that crazy.
We have, what book in your new series are you most excited to get to?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, I'm super excited for King of Pride right now. And then I'm also very excited for King of Greed. I can't say what that's about right now, but it's a trope I haven't done before. So I'm excited to kind of, and I like a little bit of a different relationship dynamic just in terms of where the couple is at. So I'm excited for that as well, but I can't say much more at this time. But yeah, there's a lot of little things that I'm really excited for in the series.
Which one do you think is going to be the fan favorite?
It's never, I'm so bad at guessing these cases. It's never really the one that I feel like, fan favorite. I feel like maybe, I feel like a lot of people will probably be very interested in King of Lust just because it is lust. King of Greed, maybe. I think, this is really hard to say because I haven't introduced all of the main characters yet, right? So I don't necessarily know at this point, but we'll see. Maybe King of Greed. You never know.
We have a guest for Marriage in Trouble. Is that what it'll be? I love a Marriage in Trouble romance. So, someone asked, what is the hardest book you had to write?
Oh, this is probably Twisted Games, for like a variety of reasons. But I think, that probably was the hardest because it was, there was like a lot going on in my life at the time that I was writing it. And also the book coming off of Twisted Love, I think I hadn't quite expected Twisted Love to take off the way that it did. And so when it did, I think there comes a little bit more of like, I was like kind of writing in my own little bubble. And then all of a sudden it was just like a lot of new readers, which I'm very grateful for, but it also comes with like a lot more expectations and like pressure, So it was, and I had like a very short time span to get that done because prior to that, I could knock out a book in like a month or two. Like my previous series, like the If Love series, I wrote those like really fast. And then this one, it like took me a lot longer just because of everything going on, but I got it done. So I always tell myself, I'm like, I always get it done. Yeah.
That's crazy. A month or two for one book?
Yeah, like my first series. But that was also, like I was at home. I wasn't going out as much. And it was just me like writing, right? It was more like, because at the time I had like a smaller audience. And so it was just like less, and I didn't really have any social media that I was doing. So it was just like less demands on my time and like, less kind of input made me write faster. Yeah. But,
so did you start writing during 2020?
Yes, in this iteration of my career is very, because I had that book that I wrote when I was in high school, and then I published it. I published that actually a few years later because I was entering grad school at the time, and I was like, well, I'm going to grad school, so I don't I'm like, I need some sort of income because I can't work anymore. So I was like, well, I have this book that I wrote like a couple of years ago. Let me just publish it. And that actually did like pretty well. But at the time, I never thought I would be a full-time writer. Like writing was just something I did for fun on the side. And when I got into grad school, I didn't really have time to write or read for pleasure anymore because I was so focused on my studies. And then after that, like my work and stuff. But when 2020 happened and, we were all in lockdown, I was like, I need a creative outlet. I need something else to do. And that was when I really started writing again. And at the time I was also getting a little like tired of my day job. So I was like, well, let's see where this author thing takes me. Yeah. So.
And look where it.
Yeah. Writing. I know. It's wild. It's hard to believe that was just 2 years ago.
I feel like there's a lot of authors who started during COVID. Like there was like not a lot to do. So they're like, let's try this. I've always wanted to.
I felt like I felt like it was kind of a turning point for the romance community because there was also a lot of new readers too, right?
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
That was also around the time that TikTok took off. There was just a lot of different influences that kind of coalesced and shifted the community to where it is today, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When is King of Pride's cover being released?
Probably about a month before the release date. So it releases April 27th. So probably sometime in late March, early April. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to see. I know there's 7 books, so they're not going to be done for a while, but I'm really excited to see all of the spines together.
I was gonna say, are they all going to be different colors?
They're all going to be different colors. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm hoping for like jewel tones, how like that's that like nice red. I'm just picturing it on bookshelves already. And I'm like, that's going to look so pretty.
I love a good spine.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I love how you put the number on there. Like, please keep on doing that. I don't know what is so pleasing about that, but when you have your spines on it, it tells you the number in the series it is.
It's like so satisfying. I know.
Yes. I did get a question on Instagram if you're opening your ARC team next year.
I might. So my permanent ARC team is closed at this moment, just because it's wonderful. But I might open it up again for a limited time next year. But until then, you can also do ARC signups through Valentine PR for like each individual book. So I'm trying to see like my PAs and like how many people can you manage on the ARC team.
How big generally are ARC teams? I don't know.
It really varies. It really varies depending on the author. Like my permanent ARC team is actually pretty big. So it's probably around like at this point, probably around like 150, which is pretty, which is why I'm like, I need more, they're gonna kill me. But I would say, I mean, I've seen ARC teams that are anywhere from like 10 to over 100, it really depends on the author.
Okay. And you're right, you have to manage that though. So like
you need to like follow up the links, you have to like send them to ARCs, and there's always technical issues every day, every time.
It never fails.
Yeah, always.
Someone asks, are you ever going to do 2nd gen books, or at least novellas of 2nd gen books?
Probably not. I'm not a huge 2nd gen person, just because I don't know. It's like very hard for me, I think, to let go of the original characters when I write 2nd gen. And then it's like, honestly, I don't like to see them go through that angst again. That will inevitably have to happen if you want conflict in a 2nd gen. Like, no, probably not. But maybe like I'll do like little short scenes and bonuses. Sorry.
I was wondering this though. What did you go to grad school for?
I studied international politics and security.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to be a diplomat. And so I did all of that. And then I happened to graduate in a very strange year for the current affairs world. And then so instead of going into government, I went into the private sector for a couple of years until I quit and became a writer full-time. But yeah.
Do you ever use your knowledge in your books from your studies?
Not the knowledge. Well, I did. So I did go to grad school in DC. So a lot of the DC stuff from the Twisted series was pulled from like my experience living in that area. And I honestly just traveled a lot. I like traveling. Part of the reason I study international relations, because I'm like, which job would allow me to travel a lot? And so I do put I put a lot of travel stuff in my books just because I really enjoy it. So that's probably the part that gets pulled in the most. But I haven't done any book about, politics or international relations yet. Yeah.
I love all the traveling though in your books. Like especially is it Costa Rica where Bridget and Reese go in Twisted Games?
Yes. I know. I love Costa Rica. Costa Rica was the first country that I visited as like a post-college graduate. I went with my friend. It was the two of us. We did like a week there and it was beautiful. And I was like, I think I'm going to write you in the book. I did.
We have, what advice do you have for someone who's interested in writing their own book? I feel like that's a very general question, but
yeah. Oh my God. We could do a whole show. But some basic things, right? So first is I would know there's different sides that I can think of this from like marketing, business, and craft perspective. One is if you're going to write a certain book in a certain genre or subgenre is to know the reader expectations for that genre. And this is the most broad thing, right? Like if you're going to write a romance and you're going to market it as a romance, you know that it has to have a happily ever after, right? And this is something that I actually see a lot in kind of groups with newer authors. They're like, well, I'm writing a romance, but like one of the characters dies in the end. And we're like, no, that's not a romance. Don't market it as a romance. So that's one thing, is to like know what the reader expectations are. I think it really helps if you do read kind of the books in your genre, like kind of read the bestsellers or like read some of the books in your genre just to figure out like what people are responding to or like what the expectations are. And then for the first book, I do think that a lot of people for their first book, they try to make it like the most perfect book that ever exists, right? Because it's our first one and we want to make it amazing. But the thing is, I know a lot of people that spend all this time, like years working on the first book, and they never publish it. And the fact is that we always improve and we grow with each book. And if you try to make that first book perfect, like you're just probably not going to end up ever publishing it. So I'm like, give yourself the room and the grace to grow as you kind of develop your skills. And then also, if you're going to invest in anything as a new author, two most important things is a good editor and a good cover designer. The two most important investments for a new author, I think.
So. I bet what got a lot of attention for this, though, is definitely that face.
You know, that funniest.
Wait, we can't. No, I don't have Christian over here.
Yeah. Oh my God. So the Josh cover was actually, it was so hard to find a model for that cover because finding an Asian male model that would agree to be on a romance cover was very difficult. But I'm very glad I did. And he was actually the sweet. He was the only model because it was his first book cover, I think. So he was like very excited. He's like, can you send me a copy? So I sent him a copy. I don't know if he ever wrote it. I'm like a little nervous because I was like, man, if this guy is not used to reading steamy romance, he's in for a shock. But he's really sweet. And then funny fact about the Twisted Love model, because in my mind, I had a certain idea of what he looked like. And there's never really people in real life that look exactly like how I pictured them. But in my mind, I was like, oh, like this guy looks very close to how I picture Alex. And I kind of put him on my Pinterest board and I didn't even know he did book covers. So I was like, he's probably like doesn't do book covers. And then one day I was like scrolling on Instagram or whatever. And I saw a book cover with his face on it. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, he does book covers. And then I went down a rabbit hole and I found the photographer and I got his picture. But yeah, that like lined up very well.
I just love these covers. I mean, I know the whole discreet thing. People don't love people on the cover, so you have to have but like so and perfect.
I love that black and white color cover with the color text is
so pretty.
I love it.
Yeah. And the spines look so nice too when they're on your shelves and they're just like that little pop of color against the black. It looks so nice.
I love a good black spine, honestly.
Yes.
Did you release those? Did you release those covers simultaneously? I know obviously with Twisted Hate and Twisted Lies, but the Twisted Love was that one. It was.
Yeah.
Okay.
released them all simultaneously. And, it was, so this is kind of like a little behind the scenes on like author thinking. But originally, so there's like this thing in the author community that when you do a book cover, it is supposed to be on genre and on brand for that genre, right? Like people are supposed to look at a book cover and know exactly the type of book that they're getting. And I think for the male model covers, it's very like on brand. Like if you look at a new adult romance, like that is what those covers look like. And so I always get my covers done ahead of time. So I had the Twisted Love cover done like months before the book cover released. And I was like very excited for it. But then, like with the whole discrete cover thing, I think because a lot of my pre-orders for that book I got from TikTok, and I knew they like preferred more discreet covers. And so literally like a month before I released the book, I was like, oh my God, I was like, do I need a discreet cover for this series? And then I made a very like last minute decision to get an alternate cover done and release it at the same time. Like I got it done probably like a month before I released Twisted Love. And I was like very last minute. But I ended up doing a simultaneous release, and obviously like which cover is more popular on TikTok. Although the male model covers are definitely more popular among kind of like Facebook readers, I think. Different types of readers.
Yeah.
Well,
it's nice to have options.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
To please both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or to just own multiple copies of the same book.
Or just multiple copies.
I have this set and I have the other set too. Were a lot of authors at the time doing simultaneous, or were you one of the first?
Yeah, so I am sure there are other authors that have done discrete covers before me. But at the time it was not as widespread as it is now. And so for me, it was actually like, I took a bit of a risk just because at the time I was like, oh, this is like another thing out of my budget to like create the second cover. I'm like, I've never, because at the time I've only really seen alt covers done for like a limited time or for like book boxes and stuff like that, and never something that was year round. And I didn't even know, I'm like, how am I even going to set this up on the back end? So it wasn't as popular then, but obviously like now it is kind of almost like a standard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate they're both like available for a long time. So we don't have to, you're not stuck with one or the other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I know you mentioned Pinterest boards. Are those available publicly?
Yeah, so I have Pinterest boards for Twisted Lies and King of Wrath. They're on my Pinterest profile, which I think is also author Anna Huang. I have a King of Pride one that is secret. I keep my upcoming project Pinterest board secret until like I'm done with the first draft. But yeah, I have the one for Wrath and the one for Twisted Lies up now. I know I need to add more to the board against dresses. I love a good dress. It's like my favorite thing.
I'm looking through questions. We do have a question about a movie deal, maybe?
Nothing confirmed at this time. Yeah. So one day,
Okay.
maybe.
It would be a fun show, I feel like, the Twisted series.
Yeah, like a TV show. I always feel like interconnected standalones would make good TV series. Like the way that they do Bridgerton, like one season for each book.
Yes.
And I personally have, I mean, like, listen, I'm not going to say no to a movie deal if they want a movie deal, but I always feel like books, I like them when they're TV series because you get to see more of that like development over time. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
If it is, it's got to be HBO Max so we can get the true throne room scene in Twisted Games.
Oh, yeah, HBO Max. I don't know. HBO Max producers, call me.
Someone asked, what is the toughest and easiest part of the writing process? That's a fun question.
Oh my gosh. Toughest part is probably, there always comes a point when I'm writing a book and I just hate it. And it's usually probably, and I'm probably not the only author, like I know this happens to a lot of authors, but I always hit a point where it's usually like the 50 or 60% where I'm like, I hate this book. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm going to go back and rewrite everything. And I think it's like, I just hit like a natural wall, and it's kind of hard to like go through it. There's always like a very tough part where I just kind of have to like get through it and have to go back and have to like change stuff. And also the content edits are not like, I hate it because it's very hard. Like when you finish writing the first draft, you're like, oh, I'm done. And then I get the notes back from the editor and I'm like, I don't want to scrap 30,000 words and rewrite them over again. So there's always like a little bit of a mental resistance to that. But I would say the best part is like usually when I'm like starting a new book, I'm always like the most excited for it, right? And then I'm like doing all this planning and then there's like all these scenes. There's usually every book, there's a scene that, or a couple of scenes that I'm really excited to write. And so those are probably like the funnest part for me. And then also when I'm procrastinating, when I'm creating my playlist and my Pinterest boards, those are fun. I'm like, they should just be able to write a book off of the playlist and the Pinterest vibes alone instead of me having to check it all
out. Someone asks, what inspirations do you get to write your male leads? Do you get any inspiration from anywhere?
I mean, I wish there were people like that in real life. No, I mean, I just kind of write the types of guys, honestly, that I generally like to read about, which if you can't tell, there's a very specific type that I enjoy. But, you know, sometimes I do take a little bit of inspiration from real life. Like I'll hear little snippets of stories or things that like people do for their girlfriends or, you know, like small stuff like that I incorporate. So it's not like their whole personality is based on people I know or things I see, but it's kind of like a hodgepodge of inspiration that I get from different things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you will obviously like a good grovel because so many of your books have
it's one of my favorite tropes.
Extensive groveling, and it
is
my
favorite tropes. Yeah, you can't tell.
Who are some of your favorite authors to read? I know you talked about like reading more in the genre. So
yeah, so you know, it's really funny because I write contemporary, but I started really my intense like adult romance journey started with a lot of paranormal romance.
Ooh.
So I went through the whole, like, I love Nalini Singh's Side Changeling series. I think she is such a master of like world building, and I don't know, like it's very impressive. I really like Ilona Andrews. Her Hidden Legacy series is like one of my favorite series ever. I think Helen Huang, in terms of contemporary romance, I really enjoy her books. For dark romance, I like Pam Godwin. I really like her Sea of Ruin. And the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey is also my favorite series. So yeah, there's a lot. There's definitely more that I'm like missing, but just off the top of my head, those are some of my go-tos.
Are you able to read at the same time you're writing, or do you need to like only read?
Yeah, I do read, but when I'm writing, I try to read outside my specific genre, right? So I'll read like fantasy, or I'll read thriller, or if I'm reading contemporary, then I have to read something that is more like dark romance that's a little like outside of the exact subgenre that I'm writing in. Yeah.
Makes sense. Someone asked, how many books are you publishing next year?
2. I know. It's like I'm not a rapid releaser. This year I wrote 3, which was, King of Wrath. I was like, oh my God, I only have a couple of months between Twisted Lies and King of Wrath. But next year I am doing 2. Yeah.
Are they going to be like around the same size as what King of Wrath is? Because I know like as the Twisted series goes, they get longer and longer. So
I have no idea. I am trying to make them around the same size as King of Wrath. I really thought King of Wrath was going to be my first book since Twisted Love to be under 100K words. And the first draft was. And then we did the edits and I was like, oh, okay, well, it ticked up a little over 100K, but it's still my second shortest book since Twisted Love. Yeah. So, yeah. I think I'm trying to keep them a little bit on the more shorter end because Twisted Hate and Twisted Lies were very thick. Very. Use Twisted Lies as a weapon, you know, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Hey, I live alone. You never know when I might need to scrap something.
A weapon. It could be anything.
Yeah.
If you were casting Josh in a movie or show, who would you choose?
Oh my God. I'm a really terrible at fan casting because I honestly don't know a lot of people. But there is this one guy that people keep on fan casting as him. I think he was like the doctor in Grey's Anatomy. And I think it's probably because of the fact that he was like an Asian doctor that they fan cast him.
Yeah.
I have no idea what his name is.
I know who it is, though. Watch Grey's
Yeah.
Anatomy.
Him. And then I'm like trying to think through like Asian actors, but I don't know. I'm not sure. If anyone has any ideas, feel free to send them my way. I'll create a little vision board.
Is there a genre or subgenre you haven't done? Like, would you write paranormal?
Ooh, I don't know about paranormal, like vampire paranormal, but fantasy possibly. One day. I do really enjoy fantasy, so maybe that's something down the line, or like an actual, like a true dark romance, maybe. I'm open to a lot of subgenres, but those two are probably the most realistic for me in terms of my taste. Yeah.
I could see you doing a dark romance very well, because these are like lighter dark.
I know. I never know how to answer. They're like, are they dark? I'm like, to me, I'm like, they're not dark because I read some like very dark romance, right? But I'm like, to people who are used to like more mainstream, like fluffier romances, to them, they're probably dark. Because people are like, oh my God, they're like, Alex and Christian are criminals. And I'm like, I mean, like, yeah, they are. But also, like, in terms of the dark romance spectrum, they're definitely on the more like tamer side.
They have their reasons for their activities. Like Christian had to go get his taco stuff to get home to his girlfriend, so he just knows things up a little.
And honestly, those people that they, unalived, they deserved it.
Yeah. So justified.
Will your next book have scenes abroad?
Yes, they will. And I'm very excited for this location. Can't say where it is yet, but
that's okay.
I know. I just love writing the traveling parts of the books.
Your favorite trope to write?
You could probably guess just from reading my books what my favorite trope is. I love a good grumpy sunshine. I love a good hates everyone but her. Enemies to lovers, probably my top 3 favorite tropes. I know. How can you ever guess reading that those are my favorites?
I love though how a lot of them have the same tropes, but there's such different books. So you really can write completely new stories with the Grump Sunshine.
Always the execution. It's always like so funny when people are like, oh no, like this, like sometimes I see like authors being like, oh, like this other person, they just happen to be coming out with the same concept. Like, should I change my book concept? And like, honestly, you can give 10 authors the exact same concept of a book and they'll write 10 completely different books. Like,
Very true.
Yeah.
Someone asked what inspired you to think of Mr. Unicorn and his lies.
I was actually talking to my editor about this, and we wanted to do something that was like with social media because she is an influencer in that book, and we're like something that's like a little lighter because there are some more like intense moments in that story, like something just really like cute and light. And then Mr. Unicorn, honestly, I never planned for him. He just kind of popped up as I was like describing Stella's apartment, and then we were like, I was just brainstorming back and forth, and then we're like, what if we did a poll? What if we did an Instagram poll? And honestly, it just kind of came out of it that way, just like verbal brainstorming. Yeah.
I love it. That's still really fun.
Yeah.
He's an icon now.
I know. Unicorn, Christian's worst enemy.
Oh, this is one I was going to ask. Which of your characters do you relate to the most?
I probably relate to Stella the most out of the 4 books, and just because of the way a lot of like the insecurities that she has, like a lot of the anxieties that she has and the way that she responds to her situation. And I think her family dynamics are just very similar to me, especially when I had been in my like early 20s, right? So for her, it was actually pretty easy to write her like internal thoughts just because they were so like similar to mine. So yeah, she was probably the most relatable one for me. I wish I was as like bold as Jules, but sadly I am not. Opening the shoes.
I'm trying to find you. Did you tell us how many couples we've met so far? They're going to be in the next series, this current series you're working on. Because you said some we haven't met yet.
Yes, you've seen the couples. You've seen the couples for I think probably 2 books, and then you've seen very small references to some of the future main characters. Not the full couple. Okay. Is all I'll say.
Do you write them as side characters a certain way to prepare their book?
Sometimes. I tend to, sometimes they'll start off just as like a very small mention. And then as we get closer to the book, sometimes I'll ramp it up. Like generally you can tell if someone is going to be a main character, probably the most in the book prior to theirs. Okay. But I'll probably start seeding them a little earlier than that. Yeah.
Okay. Because you had Kai a lot in.
Yeah.
To hype up his book. Okay. And that gets readers excited. So
yeah. And I feel like romance readers are really good at picking up this sort of thing. Picking up like the little nuggets. They're like, oh, I know. Like I read enough romance books to know this person is probably gonna get a book.
Yeah. Like when it said that Ava's best friend hates her brother, it's like, well, then I'm just going to assume that
like,
there's
that is gonna be enemies to lovers right there. Yeah.
Do you know what you're writing? I know you have like a long time to go, but have you planned what's coming after this series?
Yeah. So there is another series that I have in mind that is also kind of like a spinoff. And I haven't fully decided on my release schedule. It's very possible that I may alternate that series with the last few books of this series. But we'll see. So I do have that. And then I have some standalone ideas. Who knows? Maybe I will venture off into fantasy after the series. It's very up in the air. I know I have to like sit down and think through. I actually, the other day I sat down and wrote my like tentative release schedule for the next few years. So I have an idea. I have a general idea of where it goes. But, yeah.
That's so crazy to me how far ahead authors like typically need to plan.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
years.
This is the most organized I've ever been about. But I think it's also like with because the Kings of Sin series is also with a traditional publisher in the Commonwealth. So with them, I do have to get the books in earlier than if I was fully indie, which means I have to be a little bit more on top of my deadlines, which is and like if I want to do a simultaneous audio release as well, which is why I have to plan it a little bit more. Yeah.
Are there any plans to do that series in the US like you did with the Twisted series? Like traditional? You can't say that's okay.
I can't say anything at this time.
Okay. No problem. Was it the publisher Bloom who picked the discrete covers over the
yeah, so they decide what covers they want to do, and most of the traditional publishers pick the discrete one. Even my foreign editions, a lot of them pick the discrete one. Although the Bulgarian covers, very random, but the Bulgarian covers for my Twisted series are like pretty steamy. They give me kind of like telenovela vibes in like a good way.
Oh.
I don't know if you've seen, I actually put it in my Facebook group today. The cover for Twisted Games in Bulgaria is, hold on, I'm going to see if you're able to see this on screen, but it's like, it's giving kind of like, I don't know if you can see it, but that's the Bulgarian cover.
Oh.
Yeah, so they do the steamiest versions.
I mean, I like knowing what I'm gonna get, so.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely know. Like looking at those covers, you're like, I know what I'm gonna get.
Yeah.
Is there anything you like to do before you start writing? Like get in the right headspace?
Yeah, so I always have to have a hot beverage, usually like tea, because I don't drink a lot of espresso. I usually have like a hot beverage. I sometimes try to meditate just for like 5 minutes beforehand. And this was actually something I heard from like Melanie Harlow that she like does that helps. And I was like, oh, this actually helps a lot. And then usually I will try to listen to music. Like I have the playlist for the book. And then so for me, when I listen to the music, like I can picture the scenes kind of like a movie in my head, right? It's kind of like the soundtrack to a movie. And I just have to listen to it. And then I get in the headspace and then I sit down and then I switch to more like non-lyrical music. There's a thing called Brain FM, which is like a website/app. And it's supposed to have different types of instrumental music that will get you into different states. So there's like types of music that will help you deep focus. There's music to like inspire creativity. So when I'm writing, I will do the like deep focus kind of sounds. So yeah.
That's really cool actually.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I hear about it a lot, and then I started using it for King of Wrath, and honestly, it was really helpful. I'm like, I don't know if it's a placebo effect or something, but
this
works.
is going to
Whatever
help.
works.
Yeah, it works.
I did see that you recently did you've had a couple signings now, but was the one with Elle Kennedy was your first, right?
Yeah, it was. And it was really fun. I'm really glad that it was kind of joint. And she was so nice. And obviously like she's done a ton of signings before. So she was just like, here's like what you do. And, and no, it was great. And I kind of liked that because I haven't done any of the big book cons before. So I kind of liked that I had these kind of smaller signings to get me used to like signing books before like the big book conventions next year. Because
which ones are you doing next year?
I'll be doing Rare Melbourne in Australia, Book Bonanza, and then I'll be doing Rare in London as well. So
the rares always look so much fun.
I know, I'm so excited. And I've been to London before, but I've never been to Australia. So I'm super excited for that. And then Book Bonanza obviously is like a huge one. So I'm like, I just have to mentally prepare myself.
We'll be at Book Bonanza too, so we did get tickets. So yeah, I went last year, and it's a really fun signing. So
I'm really excited. It looked like a blast. I was getting FOMO.
Yeah, already thinking like, do I need to fly with all eight of the both versions of the Twisted Series to Texas? Like, do I have room for that? We'll see.
I'm so impressed. Honestly, like I was saying, I'm so impressed by the people who bring so many books. I'm like just lugging that around. Like for me, like even carrying like 3 of my books, I'm like, oh my God, I'm tired. Well, my books are heavy, but like still, I'm like, how do you bring so many books and like travel with them and like all of that? It's impressive.
If I drive, as many as I can. If I fly, then you're like, how many clothes do I really need to bring with?
Yeah, you're like, 2 outfits, one per day, one per night, and call it a night.
And all the rest are books.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, that's exciting. Are you planning on doing like looking into any more, or are you just sticking to the 3?
No, so those are probably the only big 3 conventions I'll do, just because I get a little like overwhelmed by super big events. So if I do too many conventions, I think it's like a little too much for me. Also, my schedule next year is a little nuts. Like I have a lot of travel going on next year, both for like signings as well as for personal stuff. And my writing schedule is a little bit nuts that next year. I do have a smaller signing as well in February that I am going to be doing in Kansas, actually, with Katie Robert and Sierra Simone. So that will be in Kansas, and I'm very excited for that. And maybe there'll probably be some like smaller signings. Like I'm trying to see if I can do something, because when I'm in Australia, I'll actually be traveling around a little bit in that region, like in Australia and New Zealand, because I'm like, if I'm going to fly 20-something hours, I'm not going to stay here for a weekend and go back home. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to work with my British publisher and see if I can set something up in, another Australian city or like New Zealand or something like that. So we'll see.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm gonna be jealous of everybody going to the Australia signing.
You can go to a rare.
I go fly to Australia.
No,
Very long.
I know, but it'll be like a big vacation, or like Rare London. I know like so many people are like so many authors that I know are going to be at Rare London because it's like closer. But yeah.
Is there anywhere else on your travel bucket list you haven't been that you really want to go?
There's so many. I literally just want to go everywhere in the world, honestly. There was a point before the pandemic where I was like, I'm going to go to Antarctica. And it's still on my bucket list, but there's so many places. Like I would love to go to Bali. I was actually talking to my friend because one of my friends is a travel journalist. And she loves Bali. It's like one of her favorite places in the world. And because we're both like, we don't work in a company structure. So I was like, what if we just do a month-long writing retreat in Bali? I was like, I can write my book. You can write your travel articles. It'll be great. So maybe
write it off as a business expense.
Literally. Well, my financial advisor was like, he's like, any travel that you do can be considered a write-off. And I was like, you should not have told me that because it's the reason my travel schedule is so crazy next year. I was like, you should not have mentioned this to me personally. But Bali, I would love to visit like South Africa or like Kenya, like go on a safari, just everywhere. Yeah.
I got on Antarctica TikTok somehow.
I need to get on that side of TikTok.
It takes so long just to get to Antarctica because it's like, they have to go to the tip of South America and just like, it's like a week-long boat ride to...
And the Drake Passage, which is like the big waves that come through.
Oh my God, I did. Okay, so that's the one part that I'm not like thrilled about. But because I did see a video the other day of someone who was sailing through the Drake Passage, and I was looking at the waves and I was like, But I do know that there's actually a way that you can actually fly there through like airplane. So you don't necessarily have to do, because my boss at my old day job, I know because he was actually taking his wife on a trip to Antarctica for, and they do this very cute, maybe I'll write this in a book one day, but they do this very cute thing where every 5 years, they travel a lot every year, but every 5 years he will take her on this like big trip, but it's like a mystery trip, right? So he'll plan the whole thing. He'll tell her what to pack, but she doesn't know where they're going until they arrive in the destination. So for their trip, he's taking her to South Africa, and then from South Africa, they'll go to Antarctica. And I know from there, I think because they're taking a plane, like they're not taking a cruise ship. Anyway, long segue is, one, I might write that into a book. And two, there's a way to get around the Drake Passage.
Okay. Yeah. I always see like the researchers too. Michae, I don't know if you ever see that, where like it's the people who like live there and work there, and they'll like show you like how cold it is and like,
it's man. Cold. I don't know about living there. Or like I could probably do it for a couple of days, but living there, I don't know.
Yeah. The Midwest is cold enough for me. I'm good. I don't need to go colder.
Yeah, the Midwest is no joke. I'm like, New York is as cold as even Boston is too much. I'm like, I could never move to Boston.
New York is cold though.
It is cold. It is cold.
Yeah.
And I'm a warm weather girl.
Okay, we are an hour though. These always go by so quickly.
Yeah.
Do you want to give like a little spiel about your upcoming book, like what we can expect from it before we get off?
Yeah, so I can't say too much, but there'll definitely be a little bit of a forbidden aspect to their relationship. So like I said, they're a little bit more like opposites attract, because he's kind of more like quiet, reserved, and she's a lot more like outgoing and bold. And if you've seen them in King of Wrath, you know that he is a member of the Valhalla Club, which Dante is also a part of, and she works at the Valhalla Club. So I expect to see a lot of interactions of them there. And I can't say much else, but it is coming out April 27th, and the pre-order is up now. And I'll probably start sharing little teasers and excerpts soon-ish.
Okay.
That is
So exciting. We can't wait. We're very excited.
Mhm.
So everybody check out Anna's books. You have many already out. So check those out. And that's all we have. Thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah. We will see everybody later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.